Welcome back to the Paul's Podcast. We're coming back at you again. We got here my good buddy, Justice Burkett.
How's it going?
Let me tell you something. You're one of the best looking men I've ever seen.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Pause.
Seth, how you doing, buddy?
Ouch.
I love you too.
I'm
but
doing
I'll
good.
just be honest. I got to give it to my man, CJ Carroll, the next best looking redhead on the table. Don't worry, baby. I'll give it to you 1 year.
That's what I'm talking
Been
about.
second place for the last 21 years of my life.
Amen. Amen. Hey, check out what's behind us.
Y'all see that?
Yeah,
You
it's
see that?
for the viewers
You
on
see
YouTube. You see this? This is beautiful. Now, the donor has requested to be anonymous, but this was donated to the Paul's Podcast, and obviously we came up with a design. They asked us to come up with a design, and then they would have it made for us. And so, thanks to Wilkes Print and Ship, not a sponsor, but they did do this.
We take sponsors.
We do take sponsors.
we
Wilkes
have none.
Print and Ship. They supposedly are supposed to be listening to this, so thank y'all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, they done a
Really.
great job. Thank you to the person who donated this. The Lord knows who you are. We love you. Thank you for
Special
investing.
blessing your way.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
If you share this 10 times today, you will receive many blessings. But man, I'll just be honest. That right there is
Beautiful.
top notch, beautiful.
Beautiful.
And,
That's
great.
Welcome to the Paul's Podcast.
Let's go. All right, guys. We have today, we've been trying, well, we're actually just now starting this, but I just accidentally got some on the thing. Dylan's about to smack me. Okay, so
Seth, quit doing stupid stuff.
I will.
We have the Bang Energy drink with us today.
we have the Bang Energy drink with us today, and today we are trying Cherry Blade Lemonade. And we're actually really thirsty. We were just talking about this, so we're just going to go ahead and get into it.
into it.
It's the sweet one. Not a sponsor. Boys, that is like Ultra COQ10 good.
That is delicious.
That's pretty good.
That is, oh my God.
I have a hard time drinking these drinks. It's because like
The
I
aftertaste.
feel like I'm
That's a good
like
aftertaste.
there's like firecrackers going off my mouth.
you just you don't drink energy drinks.
That
do you?
maybe that's
It's
it.
got like
It's good.
It's got a good cherry hit, and then it finishes off with that lemonade.
Lime.
Yes,
Dude,
it's
I
really
love it.
good.
It's
Oh,
good.
wow.
That's
Okay.
really
like
good.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm going
to.
Go ahead.
I'm going to give that one an 8.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm going to give it an 8.5. It was delicious.
I was going to say 8.5 too. Let's go.
We have a connection.
We do. CJ?
That's one of the better energy drinks I've tasted. So I'm also gonna go 8.
Really?
That's what I'm talking about.
What'd you get?
Wow.
I went 8.
8. Really? 8 all around.
Wow.
You done 7, liar.
No, I didn't. I did 8.
8. I done 8.5.
8.5.
8.
8.
8.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a good.
Hey,
That's
we're
good.
let's
this
go.
banner. This banner has got our minds just. We are. But we better have our minds on check for this episode. Am I right?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
because
a lot of
today
information.
we are talking about a cold case file.
This was actually a suggestion from a listener.
Yes, it was.
And so we got to give him a shout out to Tom Moore. And thank you, Tom. So
Yeah.
obviously
Love you,
this is
Tom.
going to be a.
This is for you.
Yeah, this one's for
You're
you,
my favorite
Chan.
Tom.
He's the best hacker on the East Coast.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, the hacker.
Yeah, I track him down every day. Sorry. Another second life.
Got him.
All right, but today we are talking about the story of
The cold case.
the cold case
The
of
cold
DB
case.
Cooper. And Dylan,
So-
why don't you go ahead and lead us in on that?
But what's that cold case, fellas? It's a face. A face.
Face?
It's not a face.
It's a fight.
It's a case that has grown cold because there's not a sufficient amount of evidence to prove a party guilty. So,
Exactly.
I went to college for criminal justice. I just came up with that on the fly. That's not actually written in a textbook, but I'm totally writing that down somewhere. Write it down.
I like it. I
That
like
came
it.
out good. But man, DB Cooper. This is what's been going on for what 2 decades now.
Yeah, it'd be about 2 decades.
1970? 80?
To
1971.
No, it's
1971, November 24th, 1971.
that's more than 2.
In 1971 on
5
November 4th, 5 decades.
Yeah,
Yeah,
5
that's a
decades.
while
50
ago.
years.
Yeah, it's been okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So roughly, yeah, it is right
Yeah, right.
because he'd be right around 80 today.
Yeah.
Yep.
But so on the afternoon of November 24th, 1971, a man claiming to be Dan
Cooper.
Dan
Cooper. Come into the airport at Portland, Oregon. And as he got in there, he went to so first of all, I'm just going to give you a brief rundown, then we'll discuss the topics. He went in there, he approached the counter, he was wearing a suit and tie, looked like a businessman, carrying a briefcase with a clip-on tie and some sunglasses. approached and asked for a plane ticket. And upon purchasing this plane ticket, he used cold, hard cash.
Yeah, can't trace
And,
that.
yeah. And then here's the cool thing. As it gets interesting, make sure we're recording. And so
A bad habit of not knowing.
yeah, I know. But he gets his plane ticket and boom, he boards the flight. But here's the thing. Dan goes all the way to the back of the airplane. So in the back of the airplane, you have access to a direct line that gets in contact with the cockpit.
Which is used by usually your
Stewardess.
your stewardess, your flight attendant.
Yeah.
And that's usually where she would sit. She would sit at the back of the plane. She'd come through and do everything like that. And the particular stewardess, you can get a name for it. I can't exactly remember the name off the bat. But the particular stewardess, she notices Dan Cooper. She notices him sitting in the back. And
He ordered a bourbon
with
and scotch.
Yeah, and so already
Some Coke.
he's and some
bourbon
Coke as
and
well.
Coke,
Yeah,
yes.
bourbon and Coke. So hey, already, sketchy guy. And so
But he looked presentable.
but yeah, that's the thing. Everybody said he looked just so normal. He was just a normal looking guy. There was nothing special about him.
A lot of the bourbon and like scotch or Coke maybe like a celebration. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
actually,
almost not.
This is true. Mixing alcoholic beverages with a cola gets you drunk faster. It does something to increase the liver to
Like
It's
break
something to
down
do
that
with all, like,
alcohol.
the sugar
Right.
and
And
stuff.
the reason why that's
So-
important isn't,
It might be diet.
the reason why that's important
That's
isn't,
okay.
for drinking and stuff like that. But the reason why that's important is because he's about to do something big.
Oh yeah,
Right.
he
And
needs his nerves relaxed.
he needs his
Yeah.
nerve relaxed. So he then tells the stewardess, he says, sit across from me. So it's not, or sit beside of me. She asks him to sit beside of him, and they begin to carry on a conversation. Well, the first thing that she says to him is, I have a bomb.
Yeah. No, he
And-
passed her a note.
passed her a
Exactly.
note.
He passed her a note. He didn't say it to her. He passed her a note.
He passed her a note, and she just put it in her pocket. And
Right.
didn't even look at it. And like
She done
just,
thought he was being slick.
Yeah,
Like,
so
Yeah,
she
yeah.
just put it.
Girl.
She just put it in her pocket. And
Right.
kept on like taking care of other people.
Exactly.
And then she finally came back through, and he's finally like,
You need to
he's
read
like,
that
you
note,
need to
girl.
read
You need to
that
read the
note.
note. Yeah. And when she reads the note,
He pops open the briefcase.
Right, but she doesn't. The lady doesn't give an accurate account, but she said it had something to do with I have a bomb, and
Yeah.
and so she at this point he gets her to sit down again, and he opens it up, and she describes what looked like cylinders and
Red
red
cylinders,
wiring.
wires.
And let's just be honest, this is the 1970s. Not everyone has seen a portable bomb, especially
Right.
not a bomb of that caliber.
In the movies, so here's the thing: not even your movies have depicted anything like this at this time.
Exactly.
Right.
Because it's from this case that we get the movies we have seen to today.
Right.
Exactly.
Where you see the bomb with the briefcases
the
with the
cylinders,
bombs.
yeah, yeah.
So obviously, if we seen that on an airplane today, I would still be like freaking out, be like, "He's got a bomb!"
Right.
And
Right.
But yeah, so
I saw wires.
So and then and just to make a long story short, so it comes to this point where she looks at Dan Cooper and they're talking, and this is what she says. She says he told her, he said if you cooperate, I would not detonate the bomb.
Right.
And so she gets and this is very important. His seating is very important. So you take the phone off the back wall, and now he is in direct communication with the pilots. And if you follow every step, DB Cooper, if you follow every step, I will not detonate the bomb. Well, so he starts asking for some very weird.
whoa, his name's Dan Cooper.
Yeah, Dan Cooper. I know.
Yeah.
But that what happened? Why he's known?
Right.
as
Yeah, I was
DB
going to clarify
Cooper.
that now
Yeah.
because we're going to
Because-
refer to him as.
So
the media.
Yeah, go ahead, Justice.
The media messed it up.
Right.
And said DB Cooper. And so, you know how the media is. As soon as I hear it, it spreads and it
Right.
goes everywhere.
Right, but
That's still a problem in
Fake
2022.
news. Fake news.
but
so
Fake news.
then that's
Right.
what everybody knew him by, and even the FBI went with it.
yeah, but Dan Cooper is important, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So he's in direct communication with the cockpit, and now he has specific requests. Then we go ahead and you let the people know what those requests were, because they were quite odd, just random. And
Yeah.
I know the first one obviously was
he wanted a parachute.
he wanted parachutes, but he didn't just want one parachute.
He wanted the parachutes. He wanted the runaway cleared off.
Exactly.
And he said the hostages will make it out alive whenever I have $200,000
in U.S.
He said American currency.
American
Yes.
currency.
So this is going to be key later on. American
currency.
And $200,000 then is how much now?
It's the equivalent to about $1 million to $2 million today.
Wow. Okay, so that's big money. And
but when he asked for the money, he wanted like random serial numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he wanted it all in 20s.
Yes, all in 20s because
20s is not going to be a bill people check.
Exactly.
Right.
Like
and
it's not a high enough bill.
I read a thing about how we'll get into about how we think he's very smart. He has a military background. It was one of the reasons why he wanted just 20s is because of the weight.
Right.
In whatever, a bag or a briefcase. Right. If it was all hundreds, it would have been too light.
Right.
If it was smaller bills, it would have been too heavy.
Right.
So 20's dead in the middle.
Right.
Right. And so he gets to this point, and so he requests for there to be fuel ready on the runway. They're going to refuel, and they're going to fly again after the hostages, the passengers, are taken off. But that means he still has to have people flying the plane, so he still has the pilots.
They're both pilots and the stewardess.
Both pilots, and the stewardess is still there.
Now, here's the thing. The captain and the pilot and co-pilot could have easily escaped that airplane.
They could have. But
they didn't because of the woman.
On the second, when they went to refuel to take off again, the pilots could have easily escaped, but they didn't want to leave the stewardess behind. Now, the stewardess was the suspected hostage. Everyone thought she was going to be the hostage. He asked for two parachutes. And the significance of the parachutes is there was a military parachute, which was your basic parachute. It's a bland. There's not much to it.
It's just what your infantry used.
Exactly.
Airborne.
And then there was
jump out of the plane.
Right. And then there was your, if your plane crashes, you just got to jump out. Then there was your skydiving parachute that you could actually use to steer. Now, there's a lot of speculations on which one he chose because we never found the parachute.
Right.
But the eyewitness accounts say that he picked the military parachutes, but then some people, it was a back and forth. They couldn't tell. They really couldn't tell because these people aren't at depth.
The government don't want us to know.
Right. These people aren't at depth at saying, "Oh, that's a military parachute," and it was Mary Poppins.
Chitty chitty bang bang.
But so he gets the parachutes, and this is where things get interesting with Dan Cooper.
Yes.
He starts giving out specific instructions for their flight pattern. Right. So after they leave the airport for the second time,
while they were at the airport, what he had the stewardess go through and close every one of the windows to each. He had the shades to the windows,
right?
So no snipers could shoot him.
Exactly.
So continue.
And there were snipers there. FBI did admit to the fact that we had snipers on the facility. We were going to take them out if we had a shot, but there was no point if you can't see what's in there. Right. So They finally get to leave. At this point, the FBI can't do nothing about it. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And so the FBI, they're cooperating with Dan Cooper because it would be better to lose $200,000 than 20 to 30 lives. Okay, right. That's what was going through their mind. Let's just cooperate. Let's get these people safe. So they take off again, the stewardess, the pilot, and Dan Cooper. He now has specific instructions. He wanted I believe it was the road. I can't remember exactly what it was.
He had to have the wings, the flaps at 10 degrees.
The exact degree.
No, 15 degrees.
15 degrees.
Flying below 10,000
feet.
Flying below 10,000
and no faster than 2 notches.
So if you don't, the key significance to that is if you're going too fast, when you jump out of an airplane, it'll completely just obliterate your path you're wanting to fly.
You're right.
You'll just go, and then you're going to be lost.
Right.
The key with the 15 degrees is it's going to keep the plane like this.
Right.
Tilted backwards.
It's going to tilt it backwards to where he's not jumping straight out, but he's going more of a dip. And then he wanted the landing gear out. The reason he didn't want to be above 10,000 feet is because above 10,000 feet, you have to pressurize the cabin.
Exactly.
Because there's no oxygen.
Right.
So, and then the hatch he jumped out of today is known as the DB Cooper hatch.
Right.
In all planes. That has been named the DB Cooper hatch on all aircrafts now.
Okay, so at this point, he has flown back to, at this point, he's at the airport.
At this point, he's been on, it's 8 o'clock.
Right, but the thing is, he knew exactly where the military base was to the airport.
Yeah.
He knew how long it would take to get to the airport from the military base. So the reason why we're bringing on this correlation is military background. We believe he had a military background, but
there's no way he didn't have a
exactly.
He knew genius.
He knew
especially
Everything was done to a T without any flaw.
Right.
Exactly. And the thing is, he gave it all these specific instructions. He's basically flying this plane without flying it. So we know he has a piloting background. But that,
he had to.
Okay, so he
degrees.
He has the $200,000, and they're flying over the forest outside of Portland, Oregon, and the plan is for him to jump. But the thing is, the $20 bills all had specific serial numbers that were marked. They were marked. So if he spent this money, the FBI could track him down, trace the bills, and they could get the guy.
He knew. Let's just say they say he didn't know that. He knew that.
Oh yeah,
he had to know going into this that the FBI is going to do.
The FBI is going to do something with the money, and so he gets to his preferred jumping point.
This is something we're missing. That night he jumped at 8 o'clock. It was 19 degrees outside.
Exactly.
And storming.
19 degrees and storming. That's pretty tough weather.
So this guy has to be military to make this jump successful because your visibility is going to be low. Yep. He obviously knows he's flying below 10,000 feet, and more than likely, I'm not an airborne Army person. I don't know, but I guarantee if you're an airborne Ranger, you're anything like that, you're going to have certification on knowing about how much time you have before when you need to deploy your chute. I would say there's a timing method to it.
Probably even studied the terrain. Like
mountainous,
forest, trees.
Yeah, he had to know that. See, that's why a lot of people speculate he was a local to Portland, Oregon, because he knew the area so well.
Which we disagree with.
But we'll get into that. Another thing, he gets ready to jump. Okay. 19 degrees, it's storming. He has the crew has made remarks about him. He wasn't, you're going to do this, you're going to do it now. He was a nice guy. He was calm. He said, "All right, now tell them to do this."
He said, "I have a grudge."
He said he had a grudge, and that's the thing that stuck out to everyone. It wasn't that he just wanted money, but he said, "I also have a grudge." So that not now a lot of people are thinking they're speculating either somebody on the plane did something, or somebody took the money, or he has a problem with the airline, or something like that. Long story short, I mean, obviously he jumps out of the plane with the parachute into 19 degrees.
They opened the hatch at 8 p.m.
Right.
He radioed up. He said, "Open the hatch." When they opened the hatch, they said anything else. He hollered back at them.
No.
And then at 8 p.m. is when the hatch opened. They don't know when he jumped.
Right.
They just know that's when the hatch opened.
They know that's when the hatch opened. And I feel like he probably didn't jump
at 8 o'clock.
At 8 o'clock, because then his zone is a lot easier to trace where he lands at. And they can mark that timestamp and all that kind of stuff. Well, he jumps, he makes it, the FBI gets out a search team, and this is when things get interesting. They could find no trace of a parachute. They could find no trace of D.B. Cooper.
I have some theories.
Dan Cooper. He basically disappeared. So the FBI, we'll give conspiracies once we finish the story. So the FBI, they decide he died. Okay, we can't find him. He's dead. He's gone.
That's basically the story. But it doesn't make any sense. And the reason why is because it goes cold for a while, and then evidence occurs. A decade later.
10 years later, they find money washed up.
An 8-year-old boy.
An 8-year-old boy finds money washed up.
$20,000.
$20,000 bills that were
buried in the sand.
They were decaying.
Nowhere near where his jump site was supposed to be.
Exactly. Nowhere near it.
Matter of fact, headed back towards Canada.
Off the bank of a river. Now, here's the thing. The boys distinctly remembers, and the parents remember of the finding the bills, that the rubber bands that they took off of that money were still on there. The factory that made the rubber bands said and scientists say there is no way those rubber bands lasted 10 years in the elements. So now the case is back. It's reopened. We've found the bills. People think now D.B. Cooper survived because he put this money here recently. This wasn't something that was left here 10 years ago. I mean, but that's just what, there's a lot of speculations. So we have our
really
theories.
Gets fuzzy after he
it
jumped
really
the plane.
does.
Like he jumped the plane.
And
they never found anything.
They never found nothing. And there's a lot of conspiracies. And Dylan, you can go ahead and lead off with yours of what you think happened that night to D.B. Cooper.
I believe he was a military background. I'll be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me if he had FBI background.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Maybe it was directly from the FBI. $2 million would just fund it back.
I mean, he had way too much knowledge of their plan of action. He studied if he wasn't FBI, he studied them. He knew what they would do.
Right.
He knew everything there was to know about airline pilots, or aviation, and I believe it was military. Because here's the kicker: when let's say they never found a trace of a parachute, it's 19 degrees outside. If he's a military man, he's gonna number one, deploy the chute at the right time. He's gonna get down, and first thing he's gonna do is pack his chute up. He don't. I mean, if I'm him, when I hit the ground, I'm military. I'm not, but if I was, that chute's getting packed up.
It's a massive, colorful chute.
Yeah, that and if it's going to be a Army chute, it should be white.
Right.
But either way, it's going to be thick material. Right. So he needs something to sleep in that night. Because obviously they're not going to send out a search team in the storm and weather. They don't know where he's jumped.
Right.
So in my mind, he's got this parachute pulled up, and he's going to use it to sleep with. And then he packs it back up. If he's Army, he's going to know how to pack a parachute, especially if he's airborne. And so, boom, he packs it back up, and he's gone. He has that with him. I mean, if you're going to be a criminal, the one thing I've studied in college was criminal justice. One thing you'll find out, most criminals are dumb when they commit a crime. They don't know what they're doing. But unfortunately, D.B. Cooper knew exactly what he was. From the very beginning, everything was a teetotal good plan.
Yeah.
And there is no way at this point in time he's going to screw this up. And he's going to mess this up.
Probably years of planning behind this.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I mean, you got to think he's in his 30s, roughly. Yeah. They don't know. We'll get into Seth, or somebody can get into how old he was and his name. But anywho, I believe, this is my theory, I believe he's alive. I believe he's dead now. Obviously, we're talking about, what is it, 5 decades?
Yeah, I think it's been 80.
50. He would be 80 years old. I just don't see him being alive. Who knows? He may be alive.
Yeah, never know.
I believe he was a Canadian. And I'll tell you why. When he requested $200,000, he said, I want it in American U.S. currency. If you're an American citizen, you live in America, when I request $200,000 in America, I'm not going to say, give me in U.S. currency. So that right there is a red flag. I think he was from Canada because he had to request our currency. The bills are marked. I believe he knows that.
Oh, yeah.
And so when he goes over to Canada, they're not going to trace our bills like we would here in America. And at that time, our criminal justice system, our forensic stuff is nowhere where it is today.
Right.
Nowhere. And all the evidence was tainted from the pilots. And then back then, they didn't know how to handle all the evidence, so it's tough. But there's actually 4 suspects that they had in this. Does somebody have those pulled up?
Don't you? You have one that you strongly believe did it.
I don't know all 4 of them, but Richard McCoy.
Yeah.
I believe it was 4 or 5 months after he had jumped, and he actually was extremely military background, had the military knowledge.
And EOD.
And he actually performed the same almost exact scenario 4 or 5 months after the D.B. Cooper situation. He was on the plane dressed up as a extremist Muslim, painted his face a different color. I mean, everything, going through like the character and all ordeal. The flight attendant sat down beside him. He passed her a note, said, I have a bomb. He had a bomb. And the same kind of concept goes through, but it was $500,000 at that time. And I believe he got the money, and he jumped the plane. Make a long story short, because I know we've got other suspects and other conspiracy theories. They end up finding the note, find his military background, trace that. They compare the note compared to his written, like official, war documents and things like that. They match the writing together, and they go to his house and actually find the parachute. And I think it was like $499,970. So he'd spent like $30.
Oh wow!
I think it was. But nonetheless, they find him. They find the parachute and they bring him in. Now that story from there gets a little bit fuzzy. He's a high value suspect. They believe it's him. But then I also believe, which I don't know the other 3 suspects as well, that the other suspects start popping up, and then they completely lose track. We don't know who it is anymore.
So the thing is, once this story got so popular, and in America, the newspaper, this is what made things popular. When this story got so popular, it was printed in every newspaper. There were so many guys that came out and said, I am D.B. Cooper. Well, for one, we know you're not D.B. Cooper if you walk up and say, I'm D.B. Cooper, because his name,
I'm D.B. Cooper.
His name was actually Dan Cooper.
Right.
And Justice, so, and you have a suspect you think did it, right? Or are you leaning towards?
Tell him about the name.
That wasn't his real name, obviously.
Dan Cooper. Where'd it come from?
Oh, that's the thing too. See, me and Dylan, we're pretty dead set he was from Canada, and here's why. Dan Cooper is a comic book series about a paratrooper, only released in Canada in 1970. You can find copies now in the U.S., but at that time, you could only find Dan Cooper comic books in Canada. So a lot of people believe he was going under Dan Cooper because maybe it was a comic book he read about a paratrooper who used to pull off these kind of stunts, and was almost kind of like a joke on us Americans, like, duh, like, I'm about to jump out this plane, I'm Dan Cooper. But I believe, I have pretty strong beliefs that we, to this day, of the 4 suspects, and I believe you're about to talk about one, but of the 4 suspects, I don't believe we found him. I think all these guys came out and said, I'm DB Cooper. I did it. It was me. I think DB Cooper's smart enough to say, it ain't me. I ain't letting nobody know.
McCoy is, if you got away with $2 million, why come back for $500,000?
Exactly. And go ahead, Justice.
Well, I don't think it was him. The subject it was Robert Rackstraw.
Ah, yes, Robert.
And a lot of people think, the people that suspected that it was him was because he was in the U.S. Army and he was a paratrooper.
Right.
And so he had all the military background that he needed to jump out of a plane. But at the same time, they they brought him in, interviewed him, done things, and just had no evidence.
Right. But I will say, out of all the suspects that they said that could be Dan Cooper,
right? He does kind of favor the sketch.
Right. And see, that's Cooper. The thing. Rackshaw was the only one who favored the sketch. All these other guys look nothing like the sketches.
There was one more who looked like him.
There was?
Yeah, Dwayne Weber.
Yeah, I remember reading about him.
As a matter of fact, he told his wife on his deathbed that he was DB Cooper.
Right.
And now she told NBC News that he would wake up in the middle of the night like screaming about his fingerprints being on planes. And he acquired a knee injury one day while he was gone. He was supposedly out hiking. And he come back home and hurt his knee.
Who was this?
Dwayne
Which one
Weber.
was it?
Dwayne Weber.
Now here's the thing.
And he took his wife. Dwayne Weber took his wife to the very same place on a hiking trip that the money was found.
Right. Well, okay. So here's the thing. That story.
Dun, dun, dun.
That story sounds very believable, but all the other suspects
say the same thing.
Their stories were so believable as well. And they come out as DB Cooper. They say they did this. They have all this military background. They say they have all this information that they want to share. Now, there was one more. I think it was Kenneth Christensen, or what exactly was that it? Was it Kenneth Christensen?
I don't.
Was it
I'm unsure of the 4 suspects myself.
Well, the
thing is, too, is like he's got this strong military background. You would actually figure that they would know him, because if he's from Canada, he's got to be in like the Canadian Special Ops of some sort. I mean, he's got all this information, all this knowledge, all this you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not He's not an amateur in his,
Oh, yeah, he knows. Well, here's the thing. A lot of people say he had to have died. They never found anything. If he was smart enough to walk through all these steps on the plane, he had a plan when he jumped out of that plane. And me and Dylan believe that he got back to Canada, got the bills out of circulation, and remained unscathed. But
I think he transferred them to Canadian.
Yeah, I believe so too. I think he can transfer them to Canadian currency.
And he probably didn't do it all at once.
Exactly. He probably did it in small increments.
I've got $1,000 to just sold something.
Yeah.
Probably not even that much, because at that time it'd be a lot of money.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Well,
I would say over the course of 5 decades. I mean, I think he's dead now.
I would like to.
If he's not, and he's hearing us talk about this, and he's getting scared.
He's probably laughing.
If one of us die, DB Cooper done it.
Well, and
that old man come and shot me. Okay.
Well, the funny thing is, now there's one more guy I want to talk about, and I believe it was Kenny Christensen, and I believe that was his name, or Kenny, or
what
something.
would y'all do if an old man's head popped up in that window right there?
Yeah, I'd probably freak out. But
I'd probably start crying.
But one more guy we want to talk about
Cooper
is Kenny Christensen. Now he worked for the railway, and the reason why that is of importance, the tie was recovered. He took the tie off on the plane, and in the tie there were specific traces of titanium only that could be found on the particular job that he had at the railway.
It could be found in there, and it could be found in rock quarries.
Right.
But in the substance amount it was found in,
right.
common in railways.
Now, the railway, he said he had a grudge, and a lot of people believe the railway at this time was losing a lot of its business due to flying. I mean, the railway was going out. I mean, it was going out of business. It really was. And he said he had a grudge, so a lot of people think, oh, okay, now we've got the grudge. It's got to be him. Well, here's the thing. His business was on the East Coast. Now, I'm sorry, but you don't grow up on the East Coast your entire life and know everything about the parks and the wilderness of Oregon.
If we all agree he's military, he's going to do reconnaissance work.
Well, he is, but there is no reconnaissance.
Reconnaissance.
But there is
Renaissance.
Renaissance.
There is no trace of him ever taking a trip to the West Coast.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, you got to think typography or
at that time.
Topography? I don't know.
At that time, I don't think we know enough about. I don't think we have enough of the tools to figure it out.
What's the study of maps?
D.B. Cooper, guys, not Renaissance. It's typography.
Typography, yeah. You got to think, though, if he's military, he's going to know this stuff. He's going to study it. He's going to go out. It may not, maybe he didn't want to leave. Back then, it's 1940s. Or there were the 1970s. He's going to, I mean, let's say he done it before then, 1960s, okay?
Right.
They're not going to have record of him leaving, going out there. And at the end of the day, this guy was an average Joe kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you another reason why I think he was Canadian. There is no way that is as much publicity as this guy got that literally the nation knew about it at this time that it was going on. It was everywhere. The sketches were everywhere. Somebody had to know this guy. If he lived in America, somebody would be like, dude, that's Paul. And just say his name was Paul or something.
Almost to an extent, it makes you wonder, like, same thing like Richard McCoy. I wonder if he altered his facial feature, like some kind of makeup or something. It
could be done something like that. But that's why I think he was Canadian, because nobody in America knew who he was. This is something that's popular in America.
Right. Yeah. To wind it down, what we're going to do is we're just going to go, and we've tried to tell the story to the best of our ability. We're not history scholars. Or one of us is
this is not the truth.
Right. One of us is a criminal justice scholar. But we're going to go through. We're going to start with justice.
I quit early. College was not for me.
We're going to start with justice, and we're going to work our way around the table. And we're going to, in just a short example, we're going to say, this is what I think happened. And then at the end, we're going to give you a group decision of what we've talked about behind camera, what we really think happened. So, Justice, will you go ahead and just give us your straight-up opinion of what happened to Dan Cooper on the night?
I do believe that he landed.
Okay.
I don't believe that he died when he jumped out of the plane because, like you said, without ever being that smart,
there's no way to screw it up.
Like to tell the plane where it needs to be, how low it needs to be, how fast it needs to be going. But I don't know about the whole Canada thing.
Okay.
He's Canadian.
And I also,
hey mate,
but
come on, mate.
But some of the people that have claimed,
it
almost like just because some of them have like such like good stories, it almost makes me think that maybe one of them was.
Maybe one of them was that. You know, I think they're suspects for a reason. We have to give the benefit of the doubt. There's a reason why they've been put.
But the evidence was so tainted on the airplane because nobody knew how to handle evidence back then.
Right. It's your turn. So you tell us your opinion, your final thoughts on this case.
Final thoughts. FBI lied about it. They said he died. I
believe that too.
The reason they said that is because they couldn't do it. They had no clue.
They had nothing.
They got beat in the hostage situation. They couldn't outsmart him. I believe in their mind they're like, he's dead. So that way people wouldn't look at the FBI and be
they got away with $200,000.
Yeah, so that way there wouldn't be more copycats.
Right. No lives lost.
Plus, when the whole thing started and they're like, yes, just give him the money, listen to him, they had no idea what they were getting into.
No,
exactly.
I don't. They didn't. I don't think they knew how good his plan was.
Right. This was the first of its time.
You know, they're thinking, just give him the money. We'll get him soon as
By far, this is the only aviation hijacking that has never been solved.
Exactly.
The only one.
It's the only one.
So I believe he escaped. I believe he landed. He's alive. I believe he's dead now. 80 years old. Yeah. I mean, he committed a big sin. I believe the Lord went. So I'm just kidding, but. Could be, but no, I believe he's alive. I have to give him. I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. It was a very, very well thought out plan.
It was,
and nobody got killed. So he lived up to his word.
Really, everybody's a winner.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're all.
I got the money. Nobody's dead.
What if they find him at 86 years old? Sorry, man, we're gonna have to do this. Man, I never killed nobody.
I spent all the money.
My final thoughts on this topic, and the reason why I believe we still don't know who D.B. Cooper was, even though a lot of those suspects, man, they're really believable. You really want it to be one of those guys. You want to give the FBI the benefit of the doubt. But here's the reason why. I believe, and I'm kind of playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, but I believe he wasn't just stealing this money so he could go retire. I believe he had a debt to pay. And I believe, and I know this is getting into a lot of his personal life, but I believe it was something, and I do believe he was from Canada. And I believe that he had such a good military background. He said, I don't want to hurt nobody. I don't even think he had a real bomb. That's just my opinion. I don't want to hurt nobody. I don't have a real bomb, but I believe I can get out of this and get the money I need.
Would you have said that to him on the airplane?
Oh, no, definitely not.
That's
cut the wire.
Definitely not. But
Dude,
I
dare you.
In the criminal justice system that we have today, like in the criminals
Did you
that
think of Law and Order when he said that? In the criminal justice system, all innocents are proven. But what all suspects are innocent until proven guilty. Go, Seth. I'm sorry, man.
Oh my goodness, Dylan. But one thing I will say, my final thoughts is DB Cooper made it out, and nobody ever found out who he was. And I believe he's sitting back laughing at all the people that come out and say, "I'm DB Cooper. I'm DB Cooper. I did this. I did that." I think he got out of it and did well. And the one other conclusion I want to
so excited over there. He's
I want to draw to this is the fact that when DB Cooper, when all this happened and all this went down and all the people are coming out to claim it, there was not one person that had the money.
Oh, one claimed it did.
One claimed
in Columbia,
it did.
British Columbia, in a locker.
But the
FBI never looked into it.
See, that's the thing. I don't think if you spend that money, it's going to get found. So I believe he spent it in Canada, and that's why I believe he never found out who it was. And shout out to DB Cooper. Or Dan Cooper. What a stud. Honestly.
I think it's Joe Biden.
He didn't kill nobody.
Joe Biden's DB Cooper.
I'll say this quickly. I think $2 million in that currency and time, so many people had very similar alibis. I think even though Dan Cooper may have been on the plane, I think he lined up all their alibis together and they split the money.
Dude,
wow.
What if DB Cooper wasn't a person but an organization?
DB Cooper's not a person; it's a mentality.
Maybe they were all involved.
Oh my word!
Cooper
I got cold
is a
chills.
mentality.
I have cold chills. CJ,
just a thought.
DB Cooper, part 2.
We're about to open up another can of worms.
But seriously, what if it was like
the
just
whole
a
group?
big?
They all had similar alibis. All had military backgrounds.
Maybe all of them.
All of them went in.
One was on the East Coast.
Dude,
one
it was
Maybe there was somebody in the woods waiting for him.
It was a secret society. Maybe there was someone in the woods.
What if it? What if you ever like? There's this show.
Now.
There's this show called The Mentalist. The bad guy on there is yeah. Have you seen it?
Yeah,
The bad guy on there is called Red John, but they always thought Red John was a person, but it wasn't. It was an organization of criminals.
What if Dan Cooper's on a person and Dan Cooper's that entire plane, and when those people are getting off, they're sitting there laughing. They're sitting there laughing.
What if DB Cooper was the flight?
Maybe it's possible, but you have to admit that would have been a very, very hard job to do by yourself.
Exactly. And what if, we're
going to have to do part 2.
There is reports. We're going into a longer episode, but there is reports of a man who left something on the plane. He left something on the plane and ran back to the plane to get it off. He wasn't scared. You know why he wasn't scared? He was in on it. Oh my goodness, we're opening up a can of worms. But we actually do have a collective decision on this.
We believe DB Cooper. It's Loki. Odin's son. The brother of Thor.
It was like Oakley, son of
dun dun dun.
But no, guys,
if you know, you know.
Hey,
thank you so much for
DB Cooper.
listening.
We know who you are.
We
will find you, and we will.
The DB Cooper organization.
Buy it with your money.